Hi guys, Miss Co here. This is our lesson for 3A. And what you see on the board is an example of a polynomial. So polynomials are a type of expression in math. And they're made up of different terms or different kinds of terms. And the kinds of terms that you might see might have a number multiplying a variable with an exponent, like the first term. This one has a number multiplying a variable, okay? We don't see the exponent, but there's an invisible one there. And we might have terms that don't have a variable. When we don't have a variable, we call it a constant. Okay? And it's important to remember that the sign to the left of the term goes with that term. So the term here is this plus 4. Our middle term is this minus 7x. And this first term actually has an invisible add in front. So remember that we need to always be mindful that our terms are always separated by an add or a subtract, okay? Let's look at some more definitions with our polynomials that you see on page 1 of your notes. So when we have a number in front of a variable, that number is multiplying the variable. So this 6, we call it a coefficient. A number that's multiplying a variable is called a coefficient. And remember, it's just right there next to the variable, but that is multiplication there, okay? This also is a coefficient. And while this coefficient is a positive 6, our coefficient here is a negative 7. Okay? And of course, when we have a letter, that is something that we call a variable, and it's like a little box that holds the place for some value that we don't know yet. Okay? On our first term, our exponent is a 3. So that little number that is raised up next to our variable can be, is called an exponent. It can be a 2 or 3 or 4. But something we need to remember when we're working with polynomials, we always need to put our answers in something we call standard form. Okay? Standard form. So what is standard form? So standard form is when we've got lots of terms and we put them in order of our exponents. Sometimes we'll have terms where our highest exponent is something like a 5 or more, but our next term has to be our variable that has the next lowest exponent. So you can see that we start with our highest exponent and then we go down, and our last term would be our number that does not have a variable, okay? And those terms, again, that don't have a variable, we call those a constant, all right? Now, we might have coefficients in front of these terms. It doesn't matter what the size of the coefficient is, right? Or even the sign of the coefficient. We put it in order of the exponents, and we put it in descending order. The degree of our polynomial, the degree, is our highest exponent. So the degree of our polynomial is the highest exponent, our highest exponent. okay? So the degree of this polynomial would be a 5th degree polynomial. And our leading coefficient would be 2, because it's the coefficient in front of our term that has our highest exponent, okay? So those are the definitions for our degree, for our polynomial, and our leading coefficient, okay? And whenever you are writing your answer, you need to always put your answer in what we call standard form. And that's when our terms are in order, with the biggest exponent first and then going down from there. So remember, all of the answers need to go in standard form. Okay? Now, the next idea that's really important in this section is the idea of like terms. Like terms. So let's talk about like terms. When we're adding and subtracting polynomial terms, we can only combine like terms. And our like terms are terms that have the very same variable or variables, and they also have to have, those variables have to have the exact same exponents. Same variables raised to the same exponents. And this is a really important idea, like terms. We're going to talk about different kinds of terms in Unit 3. And you're going to need to understand what like terms means for that kind of math problem. And this is the definition for like terms when we're working with polynomial terms. Okay? Same variable or variables, same exponents on those variables, right? So let's do some examples. When we are adding and subtracting terms as we go forward, because those terms can be positive and negative, add and subtract kind of blur. And so instead we're going to be using a new term, combine like terms. Combine meaning to add or subtract, right? So remember, when I say combine like terms, that's an add or subtract step, okay? Combine like terms. So let's look at our first example on our notes, page 2 of our Unit 3 notes. All right? Okay, so this is our first example. I moved that second parenthesis down. It's in a line on your paper. And what I want you to notice is that we have two polynomials here. We have this first one, and it's in parentheses, and a second one here. In between those parentheses, there's an add, okay? So when we have an add, we can just go ahead and find all of the different types of terms that we have and combine them. And one of the ways that we can do that is the vertical method, okay? And the vertical method looks like this. we look at our polynomial and we look for our highest exponent. And you can see that our highest exponent is that 3, so an x to the third term. So we want to make columns for each type of term that we have. We have x squared terms, we've got x terms, and we have terms that are constants, or numbers that don't have a variable. And we want to put all of our terms in these columns. We're going to sort them, right? And then we'll combine them. So when we put them in our sorting columns, we want to make sure to line them out so we know that we've accounted for that term. When we put it in our column, we're going to make sure to put the sign on that term. So the sign on that 2x cubed is positive, so we'll write 2x cubed in our sorting. Okay? Our next term is 4x squared, so we'll write add 4x squared. We have minus 6x next. All right? And then you can see that we have our constant here, which is an add 2. And then we're going to go to our next polynomial. So we're back with our x cubed terms, and this is a positive 4x cubed. We don't see the sign when it's a positive for that first term, but it is a positive, okay? So we write 4x cubed here, and of course, as soon as it's in our sorting columns, we need to line it out or eliminate it from here so we know where we're at, okay? Our next term is a minus 5x squared. Be real careful to be bringing our signs along correctly. Then we have a plus 10x. And we have a plus 7. So now we have all of our terms sorted into like terms. I can only combine terms that have the same variable with the same exponent. So I can't combine x cubed terms and x squared terms, but I can combine x cubed terms, right? So let's go ahead and do that. When we're combining these terms, we're just going to add or combine those numbers in front of our variable. So 2x cubed plus 4x cubed will give us 6x cubed, right? And when we combine our x squared terms, a positive 4 and a negative 5, we'll get a negative x squared. And here we'll get a positive 4x and a positive 9. We're just combining each column. And sometimes it's a good idea to eliminate your terms here as you combine them, right? So make sure you do a lot of practice combining like terms. This is a very important skill, all right? So this is our answer. It's in standard form because our highest exponent is 3. Then we've got the next biggest exponent, 2. And then our invisible 1 here. And then this last term is our constant, no variable. So this polynomial would be a third degree polynomial, and our leading coefficient would be 6, okay? All right, that's example number 1. Let's go ahead and do example number 2. So for example number 2, we have our first polynomial that we see is 4x to the 4th power minus 10x minus 2x squared plus 5. And then this is a subtract between our parentheses, okay? So that's going to be very important to notice. Then we have 7 plus 3x cubed minus 7x squared. And you'll notice these terms, they are not in standard form. They're not in order. our x to the fourth is our largest term in this first polynomial, and then our x squared is here. So we're not in standard form, but that's okay. Because when we combine like terms in our columns, we'll put them in standard form, okay, or in order. The thing that's really important here is we've got to distribute the negative in front of this second set, this second polynomial here with the set of parentheses. So if you ever see a subtract sign in front of the parentheses, here's what you need to do. You need to change that subtract to an add, and then you're going to flip the signs for every term inside that next set of parentheses, just the one after the subtraction sign. So we changed it to an add. This first term has an invisible positive there, so we'll change it to a negative. This positive here, or this add, will change to subtract, and this subtract will change to add, so all the terms will flip the signs, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and make our sorting columns. So we know we have x to the fourth, we have x to the third, x squared, x, and our constant. So we'll make columns for all of those kinds of terms. X to the fourth, x cubed terms, x squared terms, x terms, and our constants, okay? Now these are just labels so we know which column to put them in. And when I bring them out of our polynomial problem up here, this our example number 2, I'm gonna just line them out as I put them in the columns so that I know, okay, I've got this one in our sorting columns. So this is an add or a plus for x to the fourth. Okay, and I'm just gonna go in order here. So then we have a subtract 10x. So it'll go over here in our x column. Then we have a subtract 2x squared. A plus 5 that'll go in our constants column. Here this is a subtract 7 or a negative 7. And don't forget to eliminate it, okay? And then we've got a minus 3x cubed. And a plus 7x squared. And now what we're going to do is we're going to combine all these categories. And when we do that, you're going to see that our polynomial is now in standard form. Okay? And again, standard form being our highest exponent is first, followed by our next highest, and so forth, all the way to where that number is at the end, or our constant that doesn't have a variable. All right? So this is in standard form. We have a 4th degree polynomial with a leading coefficient of 4. All right, and that's our answer for example 2. All right, let's go ahead and do example number 3 now. For example number 3, we have 3 all by itself out front minus, and then our polynomial in our first set of parentheses is 3x cubed plus x plus 7. Then we have a plus in between the next set of parentheses. And then we have minus 2 plus 2x cubed minus x plus 5x squared. All right? So the first thing that we're going to do is notice that we have a subtract in front of one of our polynomials. And of course, when we have a subtract out there, we have to remember to change our subtract to an add and then change the sign for each of the terms just in this set